This Icon podcast is hosted and sponsored by Sphere Rocket Virtual Assistants, a leading provider for your virtual assistants and outsourcing needs. Owned by one of the top-ranking EXP agents, Justin Nelson. Sphere Rocket VA provides a one-stop virtual staffing solution for business owners, and we specialize in helping business owners grow their business by leveraging through virtual assistants. Trusted by the top names in the real estate industry like Kyle Whistle, Andrew Franklin, John Kitchens, and many more. Get ready to up your success and we'll help you achieve your business goals. Book your free consultation at sphererocketva.com and find out how we can make your life easier.
What's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Icon Podcast. I am your host, Gianna, and today we have the opportunity of talking to Darryl Baskin. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, Gianna. Happy to be here. That's a legit intro. I mean,
you
this
like
is
that?
Now the energy's here.
Yeah, it kind of gets you cranked up, like Darryl. My last Icon was like, we need to do like a little dance series to that in the beginning. Like I'm telling you. And Darryl, if you need to take that, you can.
No, I'm going to turn on focus.
Okay, perfect. Just saying, I know the world of real estate agents and inspectors calling left and right and everything. So we're very flexible here. Well, Darryl, take us back in time. Who are you? How'd you get into real estate? Where are you from? What's your life story?
All right. So Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's my market. That's where I've been since junior high. So I consider myself a local by now. Yeah. I started in real estate with my dad, who was, I was a teenager in high school. He wanted to become a real estate investor. This was in the mid 80s. And in Tulsa, we had thousands and thousands of homes on the market. It was post oil crash. We had over 8,000 homes on the market. Just as an example, today we have less than 2,000 homes on the market, I believe. And so in terms of like, that was a really bad time, but that's when I cut my teeth and just worked with him. I had no license at the time. I was under 18. He died when I was 18 and I lost my college tuition, had to drop out of school. It was just a really dismal time. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with my life? Yeah, I guess I can become a real estate investor because I just watched my dad do that. Well, in the process, I'm going to class with all the other real estate agents. They were all twice my age, at least. And as I was like just wanting to learn things, I really wasn't wanting to sell. I thought, gosh, if these people can make a living doing this, I could be a millionaire. And, that was a little bit of a cocky teenage attitude, but it worked out well for me. I did get into business. I realized there wasn't a young, at that time in the late 80s. It was, if you were a real estate agent under, say, 50 years old, you were a real anomaly. It was all older people that were retired in a second career. And so I was serving a market that was just very different. That's what got me into it. And I quickly became a top producer, and the rest is history. Now, I will say, though, one of the things that I really struggled with being so young was I had a lot of difficulty developing credibility. And so I would walk out of these listing appointments in my early 20s, and these older people who even had less experience than I did, they had more life experience, they had less real estate experience. A lot of them wouldn't even have read the contract that they were having their clients sign. And I'd studied and really worked hard, but I would lose the business because I didn't look old enough. I didn't fit the mold. And so when I was 23, and this was long before YouTube, you have to think back to really long, thick contracts with the government. The movie Wayne's World kind of tells that story. But I started a television program because I wanted to establish some credibility in my market. Now, that is really what anchored me in the community, was getting on broadcast media.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. So getting into broadcasting, that anchored you, gave you credibility.
How did that improve? At the time, if you weren't on TV, you just didn't get on TV. Now you can get on YouTube, you folks, social media, you can be an overnight success on social media. But back then, it was a really big ordeal. So people would ask, like, who picked you? How did you get on TV? And so, the truth was, I made all that happen myself. I had to go through the motions, get the sponsors. Really, I was producing a television program. And today I own a production company that does that specifically for me. Actually, I do a couple of other shows for other people, but I switched over to radio. And so that was before podcasts in 1998. I got into radio. I've been doing that for a very long time. So that's just kind of my story. The whole reason I wanted to do that was this is not a 30-minute or 1 hour program just talking about what I do and houses for sale. This is really connecting with the community and creating value that establishes trust prior to people needing a real estate professional. And that's been a focal point of my entire career is I think, and I even have a commercial on, it says trust is the forgotten sales technique. And in the early years of my business, I was always taught, well, say this and do that and hold your head this way and this craziness. And sure, some of that, having the right scripts, knowing what to say, et cetera, that's all good. But if people don't trust you, you're going nowhere. And if you'll establish trust as the basis of your business and your entire career, the rest is easy.
Absolutely. And you want to be somebody in your community that people know, like, and trust. Those are super key words there, Darryl. And as far as, your adventure, not only in real estate, but with EXP, how did that get introduced to you? Why did you make the switch to that brokerage? Where were you before? What did that transition look like?
Well, I like to tell this story because my history with real estate companies is I was at one company to start for like 6 months, and that was just kind of introduction to real estate. My manager moved. I moved with her at the time because she was kind of my coach. And so then I stayed at the next company for 22 years. And I went from being a rookie of the year, just brand new in the business, basically, to being one of the owners, one of the partners. So by the time I had finished my 22-year span with them, I'd fit every role, literally every role, from broker manager, top producer, stockholder, partner, all of that. But it was real painful to leave. But 22 years into it, I was like, I've got to move on to something different. Zillow had come on the scene. We were still doing business in the old way where we kind of owned the inventory, but now the internet had come around. So we no longer held the key to the property data. We had to evolve to something else, but real estate companies were still doing things the old fashioned way. I knew something was going to be changing. And I had gone to a kind of a mastermind group for high-tech agents. And one of these agents had pulled me aside and said, Darryl, you really need to see this cool thing. Well, he showed me the EXP model. And I have to I laugh at myself when I say this. I'm always a future thinker. I mean, I think way ahead, like 10 years ahead of stuff. When he showed me this, I walked away and thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And so that was my first response back in, I don't know, it was 10 years ago, 2012. I knew things were going to be changing. So I saw it, I looked at it, okay, it's all right, but I certainly don't see it working for me. And I didn't really get it. But I go home, 2 months later, almost 2 months to the day, I wake up early in the morning, like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I just sit straight up out of bed, and I don't know what I was dreaming or thinking in the middle of the night, but it just hit. This is the future of real estate. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I took all of those pieces of things that I knew were changing or were going to influence the market, and then the light bulb finally turned on. And what I'd seen with EXP that many years ago was the answer to that. And so I immediately called and said, I'm in, put me in, I get it now. And so we established EXP Realty in Oklahoma in 2012. I was the first state broker, and we took off. It was really the Wild West back then. A lot of really neat people and quality people in EXP that really made all that happen.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome, Darryl. Now that you're over here at EXP, you saw that they were a flagship, ahead of their time, blazing trails in technology and where real estate was headed. But now that you're here and you're enjoying things like stock options, rev share, the collaboration, what has become one of your favorite parts of EXP and why?
Our culture is very different as a company, and you kind of pick where you want to fit in. And there's so much to do. You can never really engage in everything. So you kind of EXP fits you. And so you can really begin to specialize in a certain area, whether it's producing leads. Sphere Rocket's an example here.
Mhm.
whether it's producing leads, providing services. We are going to become so specialized in the future. There's so much information that we're all just overloaded with, that consumers are going to need that specialization that we offer. And that's what EXP has done. The culture has evolved to provide agents these options that were never there before. And an example of, I remember the very first meeting I had in 2012. I had always been used to taking something to a manager's meeting, and we would talk about it. And by the way, this is not EXP. This is my previous company.
Sure.
Great company, by the way. I'd take it to the manager's meeting. I would think it was a great idea. And sometimes it would just be like, it takes 6 months to get something implemented, something very simple. And I remember going to my first meeting with EXP, and all of the brokers were together. I think we only had about 10, 15 states at the time. And I just had this idea. I said, well, could we do it this way? Well, before the meeting was over, the tech guy at the time, I think it was Kurt, he had stepped out of the meeting, taken care of it, like implemented it, came back and said, okay, it's done. I was just blown away. And that's the type of company this is obviously we have a process. Things need to be done in an organized manner, but we're staying ahead, and we're pushing that envelope to bring something better, not just to the agents, but in the end, that's bringing something better to the consumer. And that's who I'm after. That's who I'm trying to please and impress. And when my company makes it possible for me to bring something better to the consumer, that makes me the winner. That's helping my business. And I want that so I can live the life that I want and have the family lifestyle that I want. So you piece all that together, and there's just no better place to be. It actually frustrates me how often I'll have the conversation with people, and it just takes them a long time to come around and understand, like the non-EXP agents, how much of a life changer it is to be at a company that is helping you along rather than standing in your way.
Sure. Absolutely, Darryl. That's awesome to have the support here that EXP has to offer, and it's great examples all around from your end. And Darryl, before we dive into more things production, more things about being an icon agent, let's talk about you. What does your work-life balance look like? How do you prioritize that and draw the line between work and play?
Well, work is play. To me, many times I like to work. I choose who I'm working with, so that I'm working with people that I enjoy spending time with frequently. If I don't, I try to find something that we have in common. I'm a cyclist. I cycle a lot. So a lot of my clients are part of my cycling groups. And if not, I may cycle to their house and show some houses. So I joke about, it's kind of weird that your realtor shows up in tights, but it's not uncommon that I'll say, hey, I'm on a bike ride. I'm head over there, and I'll see you in a little bit. So I do try to incorporate it that way. I spend a lot of time working at coffee shops, hanging out with friends, seeing people in the community, and being visible. And I do have 8 kids, so 4 of them are still at home. And in the process, I incorporate. They help me with the business, so they'll help me with the Airbnbs that we do, whether it's cleaning or creating welcome baskets for clients, and you name it. We just do a lot together. It's important to me to wake up and understand that business is here to fuel a lifestyle and experiences in life, not the other way around. But obviously, I focus on running a successful business. There's just lots of ways to do that, and I think if we keep that balanced, we can leverage real estate in like no other profession really allows this type of flexibility. We get to choose who we work with for the most part, because we can specialize in something that connects us to those people, those interest groups. And we get to choose how we work. And we can also be efficient with the tools that we have. The more we learn about the tools we have, the more efficient we can be in delivering that service. And that's essentially choosing our own hourly pay rate.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's awesome, Darryl. And I like that you've incorporated that, with real estate. A lot of people are like, oh, how great is it? You get to build your own schedule and kind of do what you want. But that's not all it is. It's a lot of work, but also you have the capability of choosing who you want to work with, the clients that you want to attract and you want to, work alongside with, because it's not an easy process for either the realtor or the buyer, but it's a long and grueling one sometimes, and it's good to know, like, and trust the people you're with.
Well, and the downfall is that you can set your own schedule. So
Yeah.
sometimes if you're not really disciplined, you can set your own schedule, and that's your failure. That's the point of failure.
Mhm. Absolutely. It can be tough. You have to be a self-motivator. You have to hold yourself accountable to those things. And Darryl, if you don't have a virtual assistant, do you?
I do. Yes,
You
I have
do.
one.
Okay. So what are some of the things that you leverage out to that virtual assistant, and how do you feel like that's helped your business overall in reaching this high production point?
So I use a system, a CRM called RealVolve,
Mhm.
and it is essentially has workflows that my virtual assistant manages. And so she sends letters, goes through a checklist, organizes some appointments, and I'll have her work on specific projects such as cleaning things out on the database or adding people to the system. But she basically manages that stuff that I don't want to be sitting at my desk for. This picture right here of me sitting at a desk is kind of rare because I hate it. So if I'm not talking to someone like you, I don't want to be here. I want to be out doing something.
Kind of hurts my feelings, but okay, Darryl, would it make you feel better if you were on a stationary bike next time?
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
Maybe
We'll
I'm
look into
on a
that.
Peloton. That would at least get me halfway there.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, that's awesome, Darryl. Well, good to know, the things that you leverage out with your VA, and, things that you don't like or were taking up too much of your time when you could be doing more efficient income generating tasks. So that's what assistants are for, and you have to spend money to make money and reach that next level. So that's a hill I will die on. And if you guys have questions about VAs, how to use them, how to leverage it out, feel free to reach out to me or Darryl. Neither of us are going to try to sell you one if it's not right for you. But just ask us about our experiences with them. And Darryl, moving on past that, let's talk production in your area of Tulsa. What does that average housing price look like, and how many homes do you have to sell to be able to cap?
So our average house price is about $285,000, and I don't even know what you have to do to cap. This is interesting to me. People ask this question, and you would think I do watch my business, and I'm try to stay on top of my cash flow and my pipeline.
Sure.
But you asked me how many times I've iconed. I don't know, several times, but I don't really pay attention to it.
Well, how many trophies do you have, Darryl?
Well, I don't know if we got a trophy in the very beginning, but I remember getting, because I got my little pin, and I was like, oh, what is this? And so the icon program was new. And of course, we've changed it a lot as to how you get it, et cetera.
Sure.
And as much as I value it, and it's really a tremendous thing, when I wake up in the morning, I don't think about an icon award. I think about, and that's something that I've been somewhat passionate about in talking to my agents and my organization. Icon comes naturally when you really focus on the basics of staying in touch with your people, bringing them value, working every day on a diligent time schedule, and delivering the service that they want, because then they're just going to be at your feet. You're going to have wonderful reviews. I go the be, do, and have principle. And if you've ever heard that, it's a very simple explanation. There's most people live by have, do, and be. If I have all of this stuff, if I had money, or if I was a top producer, all this other stuff would be easy, and then I could be that. But if we start with be, I mean, it's inside you, and you have to decide in your mind with who you are, that you're a top realtor, be or do those things, carry them out every day, and then you're going to have all the stuff. You're going to have the award, you're going to have the money, you're going to have the fancy car. And too often, and I see the people who don't make it in real estate, they're reversing it, and they want to have all that stuff first. They go for all the bling, and there's no real substance there. So the real successful agents are focusing on those basics every day. So anyway, that's my little lesson.
That's great. No, thank you so much for sharing that, Darryl. And, speaking of lessons and teaching and coaching and mentoring, you've also got a cultural commitment when it comes to being an icon agent, right? So, do you do that cultural commitment aspect of it? What avenue do you take for it and why?
So I do a tremendous amount of community work, and that is it comes out through volunteering. I even volunteer at a local kids cycling group in our public schools.
Oh, awesome.
Do a lot of interviews and public broadcast on our top talk radio station here is KRMG. And so I run on that weekly and have a daily program on our Bloomberg affiliate. So a lot of things that are connecting with the community and giving back to the community that way, mostly through public recognition, public relation services, and then obviously teaching a lot of classes and coaching through EXP.
Mhm. Absolutely. That's awesome, Darryl. And it's a great way to give back to EXP and your community, right? Going back to that sphere of influence thing. But as far as like the cultural commitment with EXP, teaching, mentoring, and having that be led by the best of the best, top 2% of the company, it's really cool resource for everybody at EXP out of probably what's going to be 84,000 agents any day now. And Darryl, out of all the benefits you get with being an icon agent, you're supposed to get big glass shiny trophies, you get your pins, you get that cat back in stock, you get to go to EXPCon and shareholders for more stock back. What is your favorite benefit of being an icon agent, and why do you continue to strive for this status?
So I think icon, to me, the most important thing, it really isn't about the recognition, although I do enjoy that. I certainly don't want to turn that away. But I think it's the subconscious satisfaction that I know there in the background, I'm being rewarded for building this company. And previously, I had always felt like there was that missing component from the traditional business model. And I really should call it old-fashioned business model, that the people who built the company, the ones with the boots on the ground, really weren't being rewarded for that. They were on a hamster wheel and they just had to keep going all the time. And I felt like it was important to be rewarding those people, because the longer we can keep them, and we're all company owners here now at EXP, the longer we can keep our own people on the hamster wheel in a sense, but not going so fast, let them enjoy life, let them live out a full rewarded life. And then we're all benefiting together. And that's where the culture of EXP is so remarkable, is that we're doing the same thing we were always doing before. We're just getting rewarded for it. We're getting paid better for it. My group, and I don't really call it a team anymore, my group of specialists, they get to take a vacation and somebody's here to cover for them, and they're making more money than they were before. And when they're producing at a level that they would have been as a top producer somewhere else, now they're getting stock awards. This is a substantial change to life, and EXP makes all of that possible.
Absolutely. And, multiple streams of income possible, being awarded. I mean, what better way to practice employee retention than to give them a piece of the pie, right?
Right.
And so, Darryl, my next question is going to be, were you ever skeptical of EXP when it was introduced to you?
Well, that first couple of months, I was, and I'm so embarrassed to even admit that, because I'm the guy that's thinking way ahead. I mean, I've always been known for that. When I was I say a kid, in my early 20s, my first slogan was the future of real estate, because I just answered this questionnaire and I hired a public relations firm, and they said, where are you, whatever. And they said, your slogan needs to be the future of real estate. That's what you are. And I was like, okay. So I just hung on to it. And later I started to understand why they even said that, because I always adapted to things early. And so when EXP was presented to me and I kind of poo-pooed it, and I was like, yeah, it's just kind of a little sad thing. For 2 months, I did that for 2 months. I look back and think, gosh, how could I not have seen it? But again, it helps me today when I'm talking to people and I get kind of frustrated, like, you don't get it. And I have to remember, if it took me 2 months, I may have to carry on a conversation with them for 6 months, 2 years, who knows?
Mhm. Absolutely. No, absolutely, Darryl. And, it's okay to be skeptical of EXP, but you should owe it to yourself to do that research, right? And so say somebody right now, they're doing their research and they are looking at this Icon podcast and they're seeing what everybody has to say about coming over to EXP and their experience with it. So for example, there's somebody watching right now who sees the greener grass, but they hear things like EXP is a pyramid scheme, it's a cult, don't drink the Kool-Aid. What would you have to say to them to kind of encourage them to make that leap and come on over to EXP?
Well, I actually think the old-fashioned business model is a cult, and the old-fashioned business model is a pyramid. I have this little diagram, and it is a pyramid, and it shows the broker on top, and then the managers that they hire. They assign you the manager. And then you're the agent underneath. So you produce the income that pays the manager's salary, that funds the broker and his ownership of the office building that you're paying desk fees for, et cetera. And so when you show that, you're like, that's a pyramid. Because when you look at EXP's model, I am a point of contact within EXP. And so I have my own agents who work with me. Not for me, but with me. A couple of people work for me, and that's my direct team, but everybody else is part of my network. So I'm there to support them. And then the broker is actually an employee of the company that I own. So that's that's an entire network. When you draw all those out into little cells, you see picture wise, it's very different. The pyramid is actually the model that the people accusing EXP of having a pyramid are actually running. So that's and like, how brainwashed do you have to be to think that that's better for you as an agent? And that's kind of a strong word, but the brainwashing, I think, is really an important way to look at it, because your boots on the ground are actually producing the income for the ownership of a company that you have nothing invested in. So I think stepping back from the emotion of it and looking at the hard data and the facts is the most important and effective way to really help your brain absorb that information. And change is difficult. Change is really difficult, and it's scary, but it's an important thing to look at, especially when you see how we look at other companies and see how Sears and JCPenney and Blockbuster and all the other companies that are just not around anymore, because they've been replaced by a more efficient and effective way of delivering goods and services. And real estate has been long overdue in how we would handle that. The last thing I'd like to point out is, every once in a while, I'll have someone who's quite astute say, wait a minute, you're a real estate company and you don't own real estate. I say, but who owns our real estate company? Our agents own our real estate company. And I'll take just my local group of agents and say there are 20 of us. If we put 20 of us in a room, like 12 of those 20 are actual investors themselves. They either own, I own my office building and I own my own investment property. I have another one that flips property and has, I think, 50 Airbnbs. I don't know how many she's got right now. You just go down the list. These are people, because of EXP, these are people who are saving their money that they would have been paying into a broker, buying the broker's building, able to invest it for themselves, which makes them not only more financially stable and profitable as a personal entity, but guess what it does for them in representing their customers and clients? It makes them tremendously more valuable to the customer, the end customer and client, because they have that personal experience. They're not regurgitating something that they learned in a class. Right. So we have a superior business model all the way around, and it comes from that culture that starts from the ground up at EXP.
Absolutely. And that culture, it just fosters so much. And there's a reason that EXP has grown the way that it does. It's really not a matter of if you come over to EXP, but it's when.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And Darryl, I think it's been an awesome episode. Are you going to be at EXP Con?
I will be. I've purchased my ticket, and
Awesome.
I'm going to be there.
Well, I hope to run into you there. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with today as we wrap it up?
Your questions were great. They brought to mind the things that I wanted to talk about. So thank you for being a good host.
Thank you for being a good guest, Darryl. I'm blushing. I'm just kidding. But I'm super excited to meet you in real life in Vegas. And I would love to hear about, things in business that change from now to October, and looking forward to catch up. And you're welcome back on the Icon Podcast anytime.
Thanks, Gianna. Good to visit
Thank
with
you, Darryl. Talk to you soon. Bye.
This Icon Podcast is hosted and sponsored by Sphere Rocket Virtual Assistants, a leading provider for your virtual assistants and outsourcing needs. Owned by one of the top-ranking EXP agents, Justin Nelson. Sphere Rocket VA provides a one-stop virtual staffing solution for business owners, and we specialize in helping business owners grow their business by leveraging through virtual assistants. Trusted by the top names in the real estate industry like Kyle Whistle, Andrew Franklin, John Kitchens, and many more. Get ready to up your success, and we'll help you achieve your business goals. Book your free consultation at sphererocketva.com and find out how we can make your life easier.